Shalom to the elect of Israel. Shalom to you Hebrew Israelites. Gotta give our praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rekah, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, who teach well, and the sincere salutation to all the ark and pushing this truth throughout the four winds of the earth within the hope of the elect. Shalom to the Akwa for our listening and learning. I'm Isaiah coming into another lesson in truth, facts, faith, and edification. And this is another short video about wars and rumors of wars. This is the real news that the local news and the CNN is not telling. This is the real news that the local news networks, medias, and CNN is not telling us. Lord's willingness be edifying.
Welcome back again, everyone. It's Dina Kalmada here with CWW7 News. And for today, I do have some updates I'd like to bring to you. We will touch base with China, Taiwan, Venezuela, Russia, and the United States. And in fact, I'd like to take you to this first report that I've been meaning to bring to you. Apparently, according to RT News, the United States says it will not rule out a nuclear first strike. A Pentagon official has stated that the United States will retain the right to carry out a nuclear strike in response to a conventional attack. A no-first-use policy would erode U.S. allies' belief that they are protected. Washington has no plans to reverse its policy of the no-first-use of nukes, which means it can bomb its adversaries with nuclear weapons under extreme circumstances. Deputy Undersecretary of Defense said in his prepared remarks to the Senate Armed Service Committee hearing on Thursday that Washington has no plans to reverse its policy of no first use of nukes, which means it can bomb its adversaries with nuclear weapons under extreme circumstances. He also claimed that if the United States changes its stake on the issue, which he described as a constructive ambiguity, it would undermine U.S. extended deterrence and damage the health of our alliances, because it would call into question the assurance that the United States would come to the defense of allies in extreme circumstances. This uncertainty might prompt these countries to arm themselves with nuclear weapons. The Nuclear Posture Review, commissioned by President Donald Trump in 2018, lists a range of circumstances under which the United States might consider striking first, such as a significant strategic attack on the U.S., allied or partner civilian infrastructure, forces, their command and control, as well as warning and assessment capabilities with conventional weapons. The clause represents a major shift from the previous U.S. nuclear doctrine and has drawn strong criticism from Moscow, which accused Washington of lowering the nuclear threshold and exasperating the nuclear arms race. In addition to threatening nuclear alienation, the review sets the stage for upgrading and expanding the already vast U.S. nuclear arsenal. The nuclear buildup envisions developing new types of low-yield warheads that could be placed on submarine-launched ballistic missiles and on sea-launched cruise missiles. The mini-nuke produced by the Pantex plant in Texas has a relatively small explosive power of around 5 kilotons of TNT, in an attempt to make the U.S. deterrent more flexible. According to some experts, it can be launched from the B-21 Radar Heavy Bomber, which is being developed, making a preemptive nuclear raid more of a probability. Russia and its weapons modernization program has been singled out in the review as one of the reasons for a major buildup of the U.S. nuclear triad. But unlike the American one, the Russian military doctrine allows the use of nukes only if under attack by weapons of mass destruction, on when Russia's sovereignty is at stake. Finally, reports that Russia has repeatedly warned Washington that the deployment of the new bombs could violate the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Meanwhile, in Venezuela, the United States has warned Russia that it would be punished for supporting Venezuela, as Washington and Moscow face off over the Latin American country's political and economic crisis. U.S. Special Envoy to Venezuela, Elliot Abrams, has condemned Russia's recent deployment of the aircraft and up to 100 military personnel to Venezuela, where Moscow has backed President Nicolas Maduro against Washington-sponsored National Assembly leader and self-declared acting head of state, Juan Guaido. The feud, which came amid an economic collapse blamed on the internal mismanagement and U.S. sanctions, has fueled the latest flare-up in already failing ties between the world's top two military powers. Abrams stated that we have a very nice options paper of the various things that can be done in U.S.-Russia relations. There are a lot of things we do in economic terms, in terms of sanctions. There is a lot of things on that list, so the Russians will pay a price for this. Abrams later told a press briefing that it would be a mistake for Russia to think that they have a free hand in Venezuela. He also confirmed U.S. suspicions that Moscow was helping the regime with the S-300 ground-to-air missile system that apparently got screwed up amid ongoing electricity outages, exasperated by fuel shortages due to U.S. economic restrictions. On the other hand, Russia has defended its military presence in Venezuela amid warnings from the United States. In a statement published on Saturday, the Russian Foreign Ministry addressed how the arrival in Venezuela of Russian specialists for military technical cooperation continues to cause a nervous reaction in Washington. Of course, we understand what causes American nervousness. The planned rapid change of power in Venezuela failed. With its self-confidence, Washington only set up those in Latin America and Western Europe who rashly hurried to recognize an impostor whom the people did not elect as the head of Venezuela. Thus, they deprived themselves of space for diplomatic maneuvers. Russia and China have increased their support of Maduro in the face of the mounting U.S.-backed efforts to oust him. All three major powers have financial interests in the oil-rich nation, though Washington has severed all ties with Maduro in hopes that Guaido would soon replace him. The reappearance of Russian military personnel and a recent Chinese plane have stoked U.S. concerns that its vision for Venezuela may be losing momentum. These events have also fueled anxieties among neighboring right-wing states such as Colombia and Brazil, which quickly signed on to the U.S. plan. Finally, it reports that President Trump stated on Friday that he planned on speaking with the Russian president and the Chinese president about the situation in Venezuela. However, TASS News Agency is saying Saturday that the White House has yet to request any such call. And the Drive is reporting that the Russians are operating their Tu-154M aircraft configured for surveillance flights, sanctioned under the Open Skies Treaty, that allows member countries to conduct surveillance flights over each other's territory. The aircraft are equipped with imaging equipment with specific limitations, and monitors from the country being surveilled are on board the flights to make certain the party complies with the perimeters of the treaty. This latest series of Russian Open Skies flights are being conducted out of Great Falls, Montana, and are covering a slew of strategic points in the western part of the United States, including the highly secure Nellis Test and Training Range in southern Nevada, home of Area 51. The midday flight on March 28, 2019, appears to have originated out of Travis AFB, located near San Francisco, and continued on something of a highlights tour of American military installations in California and Nevada. It headed up where one of America's nuclear weapons assembly plants is located, and a secretive airstrip that specializes in test flights of unmanned aircraft, as well as other sensitive Department of Energy installations. It then headed over the pockmarked Nevada test site. Area 51 sits just east of this location. The aircraft's panoramic cameras can collect fairly wide swathes of imagery along the Open Skies aircraft's flight path. It goes on further to report that the United States has already flown a number of Open Skies sorties over Russia in February. Open Skies almost became a thing of the past when the U.S. accused the Russians of abusing the agreement and not offering equal treatment, as defined by its terms. The U.S. also claimed that the equipment on Russia's newest Tu-214 Open Skies didn't meet the limiting requirements of the treaty. But just as it looked like the Open Skies was crumbling, there was a sudden about-face and the flights resumed, with an especially high-profile U.S. sortie over Ukraine occurring in January. It definitely feels like a Cold War Part 2 is taking place, and I know I've said that before. But there can be no denying that tensions between the United States and Russia are coming to a head, especially with what is happening in Venezuela. But speaking of tensions coming to a head, I would like to switch gears and talk about China next. The South China Morning Post is reporting that China must use a tougher deterrence with the United States in regard to the South China Sea. Head of the government-backed National Institute for South China Sea Studies is urging officials to reinforce deterrence facilities. According to the South China Morning Post, he argues that the U.S. and its allies are mounting a bigger challenge in the waters. The waters have long been contested by the two nations, with threats being issued about entering them from both sides. The analyst stated that tension in the South China Sea will rise in the coming year, so we must deploy some defensive facilities that are able to overawe American warships entering nearby waters. The Americans feel that they alone are not enough. They may also bring in allies such as Britain, Australia, or Japan for exercises, or even create a regular joint action regime. China lays claim to most of the waters, using the southern island as one of its bases. So far, the U.S. has conducted 15 freedom of navigation operations in the area since 2015. The U.S. also wants their allies to consider similar maneuvers. Mike Pompeo, the U.S. Secretary of State, told an audience at a National Review Institute 2019 Ideas Summit that there is an important relationship between the U.S. and China. But he added, their moving into the South China Sea is not because they want freedom of navigation. Their efforts to build ports around the world aren't because they want to be good shipbuilders and stewards of waterways, but rather they have a state national security element to each and every one of them. Finally, it reports that in March, Admiral Philip Davidson, head of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, said American forces have observed more warships, fighter jets, and bombers to the disputed waters last year. He added that Beijing's increased presence poses a threat to future trade in the region. And Reuters is reporting that Taiwan on Sunday condemned what it called a provocative move by China after two Chinese fighter jets crossed a maritime border separating the two sides amid growing friction between Taipei and Beijing. Earlier on Sunday, Taiwan scrambled aircraft to drive away the two Chinese planes. China's move had seriously impacted regional safety and stability, said the ministry. A spokesman for Taiwan's presidential office said that Beijing should stop behavior of this sort, which endangers regional peace, and not be an international troublemaker. He also added that Taiwan's president has urged the army to complete all tasks on war preparation. China has repeatedly sent military aircraft and ships to circle Taiwan during drills in recent years and work to isolate the island internationally, whittling down its few remaining diplomatic allies. But the United States last week sent Navy and Coast Guard ships through the Taiwan Strait as part of an increase in frequency of movement through the strategic waterway, despite opposition from China. Taiwan is one of a growing number of flashpoints in the U.S.-China relationship, and China has never renounced the use of force to bring Taiwan under its control. Meanwhile, in response, the state-backed Chinese newspaper The Global Times carried statements on Monday dismissing the international concerns about the flights of the Chinese warplanes. The Global Times often carries statements from anonymous experts or officials that reflect Beijing's stance. In this case, unnamed analysts said Sunday's flight may be a response to the American aerial and naval freedom of navigation operations in the Taiwan Straits, designed to underscore Washington's support for Taiwan's independence. In fact, according to the Global Times, Washington's involvement in the dispute was the source of continued tensions. As a matter of fact, Taiwan is not worth targeting anymore, stated an anonymous expert. All of our military strength is used to tell the U.S. to stop where it should stop. The island of Taiwan causes trouble because the U.S. supports it. When the U.S. calms down, it will calm down. Meanwhile, a military expert added that the middle line between the two nations is merely a psychological one, and that Beijing considers both sides to be Chinese territory. So definitely some very interesting news there. And we know that China is not going to back down concerning Taiwan, and neither is the United States in regard to Taiwan or the South China Sea. Hopefully, calmer heads will prevail. But we already know from prophecy that we will hear of wars and rumors of wars, as well as distress of nations. So everything we're seeing right now is Bible prophecy being played out right before our very eyes. But with that said, as always, I will definitely continue to keep you updated. Please do leave your comments in the...
Now that's one showing you, hey, these wars and rumors of wars is kicking off, man. This news about all these different countries is gearing up for war. You do not see this in your local news. You do not see this on CNN. They will not let you know about this news, but you got Jake running around here playing games, warning about nothing, man. Okay? When destruction is coming, World War III is at the shores of North America, man. So we're going to play this other video. This is all information that we need to know every day, man. The elected Israel are supposed to be watchers, giving updates daily.
Welcome back again, everyone. It's Dina Kalmett here with CWW7 News. And for today's broadcast, I do have some updates I'd like to bring to you concerning some events that have occurred in the last few days. We will touch base with the United States, Venezuela, Russia, as well as what's happening with Syria, Israel, and Iran. But I first want to talk about the Philippines and China because there has been some recent tensions in regards to these two nations. In fact, it is being reported Philippines president has warned he will send his troops on a suicide mission if Beijing does not lay off a disputed island in the South China Sea. The leader spoke out on Thursday after the Philippine military spotted more than 200 Chinese vessels near the Manila-occupied island between January and March. In fact, he said, "I will not plead or beg, but I'm just telling you, lay off because I have soldiers there. If you touch it, that's another story. Then I will tell my soldiers, prepare for suicide missions." Comments were a word of advice to the Philippines' friend, China, rather than a warning. He reminded China that it had closer ties with the Philippines under his leadership, but that things would be different if the country did not stay away from the islands. His comments came as the Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs claimed the Chinese presence was illegal. Meanwhile, in the South China Sea, tensions surged after a U.S. Navy ship was spotted carrying twice the amount of fighter jets than usual. The assault ship USS Wasp was on its way to annual exercises in the Philippines. The ship was carrying at least 10 F-35B Lightning II stealth fighters. Also noting that the ship usually carried 6 of the aircrafts. The U.S. Navy said in a statement, U.S. and Philippine forces will conduct operations, live fire training, urban operations, aviation operations, and counterterrorism response. The ship and its fighters represent an increase in military capability, committed to a free and open Indo-Pacific region. It goes on further to report that the annual exercises allow the troops to prepare for a crisis in the Indo-Pacific region. The exercises mainly focus on maritime security, which is a growing issue as China continues to try to take control of the waterways. What's happening in the South China Sea is definitely a very hot issue, and I don't see things simmering down anytime soon. But I will continue to follow the story and keep you updated. However, I would like to move on and talk about Venezuela next. It is being reported that the United States has stated that things will probably get worse before they get better, and that a military option is still on the table. The United States has warned again for Russia to stay out of Venezuela. Discussing the situation during an interview on Friday with Fox and Friends, Pompeo said that he saw no evidence that Moscow would heed Washington's request to pull out personnel from Venezuela, which he said differed from the conflict in Syria because it's in our neighborhood. Despite having held direct talks with the Russian foreign minister, the top U.S. diplomat then warned that the situation may get worse before it gets better. Pompeo told representatives of the U.S.-led NATO military alliance the previous day that the American position was made clear by President Donald Trump, who last week warned that all options are open. Pompeo told reporters at the NATO gathering that the United States has its responses being prepared. However, Russian officials have repeatedly dismissed threats from the U.S. counterparts over deployment in Venezuela, as Moscow's state-run Rostec opened a military helicopter training center there. Russian personnel were said to also be fulfilling military technical cooperation between the two countries. But the Washington Examiner is reporting that a military intervention to oust the Venezuelan Nicolas Maduro remains a very serious option for the United States, according to President Trump's national security team. A senior official stated that obviously that's a result that no one would like to see, but clearly one that is seriously considered as events unfold. The State Department Director of Policy Planning stated that we're thinking about the Russian presence very seriously, and it's ramping up, and the growing complicated nature of Venezuela. This is not an easy off-ramp for Maduro, as some would have hoped. It definitely seems as if Russia isn't going anywhere. due to the fact that even more troops could be on the way. So definitely a very tense situation, and I will continue to keep you updated. But I would like to move on and talk about what's happening in the Black Sea. It is being reported NATO will hold multinational Sea Shield 2019 naval drills in the Black Sea. Later this month, as tensions between the alliance and Russia threaten to escalate into an all-out war. Sea Shield 2019, the largest multinational naval exercise of its kind, is being organized by the Romanian Naval Forces and will take place from April 5th through the 13th in the territorial waters of Romania and international waters of the Black Sea. It will involve 14 Romanian military ships and 6 military vessels from Bulgaria, Canada, Greece, Turkey, and the Netherlands, with participation from 2,200 troops. They will exercise joint combat procedures against underwater, surface, and air defense threats, adapted to the types of threats emerging in the Black Sea. The U.S. Permanent Representative to NATO announced at a Washington briefing that the alliance was preparing to adopt the drills in the Black Sea against Russia. She added that the measures will be taken against the background of developments in the Kerch Strait near Crimea. The U.S. ambassador warned Russia's erratic behavior in the region is totally unacceptable. At a press conference organized to celebrate the 70th anniversary of NATO in 1949, she said that aggression with the capture of the Ukrainian warships and detaining sailors is totally unacceptable, and we call for immediate release. The ambassador added that NATO allies would continue to ramp up their activity in the Black Sea region with more land monitoring and larger military presence with NATO ships. It goes on finally to report that the NATO Secretary General warned the U.S. Congress, "We must overcome our differences now because we will need our alliance even more in the future. We face unprecedented challenges no one nation can face alone." He added that NATO has no intention of deploying land-based nuclear missiles in Europe, but NATO will always take the necessary steps to provide credible and effective deterrence. As NATO pulls together to do their training exercises in the Black Sea, Russia and China have set out to revamp their naval forces and hold joint drills next month. The Russian Defense Ministry announced this week that the Russian Navy and People's Liberation Army Navy are to hold the Joint Sea 2019 joint naval drills in late April to early May 2019. Since March 25th, representatives of both countries have begun consultations on the preparation of the training episodes, including traditional coastal and maritime components. The latest Joint Sea training, which has been held frequently since 2005, comes amid heightened tensions between the world's foremost military power and its two top rivals, who have increasingly worked together. In addition, Moscow and Beijing are also working on their naval firepower in response to Washington. The Pentagon has criticized Russia's growing presence in strategic areas, such as the Arctic Ocean, as well as the Baltic, Black, and Mediterranean seas. And speaking of the Arctic, it is being reported that Russia has revamped the Arctic military base to stake claim on the region. Missile launchers ply icy roads and air defense systems point menacingly into the sky at this Arctic military outpost, a key vantage point for Russia to project its power over the resource-rich polar region. The base, dubbed Northern Clover, is painted in the white and blue and red colors of the Russian national flag. It has been designed so soldiers can reach all of its sprawling facilities without venturing outdoors. It's strategically located between the Laptev Sea and the East Siberian Sea on the Arctic shipping route, and permanently houses up to 250 military personnel responsible for maintaining air and sea surveillance facilities and coastal defenses like anti-ship missiles. The Russian base has enough supplies to last for more than a year. But Russia is not the only one trying to assert jurisdiction over the parts of the Arctic. The United States, Canada, Denmark, and Norway, as well as China, have shown an increasing interest in the polar region. But while U.S. President Donald Trump's administration has seen the Arctic through the lens of security and economic competition with Russia and China, it has yet to demonstrate that the region is a significant priority in its overall foreign policy. The post of Special U.S. Representative for the Arctic has remained vacant since Trump assumed office. Russia, however, has made reaffirming its presence in the Arctic a top goal, not the least because the region is believed to hold up to 1/4 of the Earth's undiscovered oil and gas. Russian President Putin has cited estimates that put the value of Arctic mineral riches at $30 trillion. Very interesting news in regards to the Arctic. I wonder if now the United States will start building up their troops there, at least to the extent that Russia has. But I guess only time will tell, and I will continue to keep you updated. But I would like to switch gears and talk about Syria next. It is being reported that the Foreign Ministry has stated that they will recapture the Golan Heights from Israel by any means. Syria will not shy away from using force to reconquer every inch of the Golan Heights, stated the country's foreign minister. He also stated that U.S. President Donald Trump's decision on the occupied Syrian Golan has a single effect, as it only enhanced the U.S. isolation. Our right in the occupied Syrian Golan is firm, and we can't be denied by the passage of time, and every inch of the occupied Syrian territories will be liberated. The foreign minister went on to state, "We have will and determination. Our war since 2011 is to protect Syria's sovereignty and independence and to liberate every inch of its territories. Our war on terrorism hasn't stopped, and the conspiracy against us is continued through the military assault and economic siege with the aim of prolonging the crisis in Syria in the interest of Israel." Those are definitely some serious words coming out of Syria, and I have yet to hear Israel's response. But when I do, I will definitely keep you updated. But I would like to move on and talk about what's happening with Iran. Reuters is reporting that the United States is expected to designate Iran's elite Revolutionary Guards as a terrorist organization, marking the first time Washington has formally labeled another country's military a terrorist group. The decision, which critics warn could open U.S. military and intelligence officials to similar actions by unfriendly governments abroad, is expected to be announced by the U.S. State Department perhaps as early as Monday. It goes on further to report that the announcement would come ahead of the first anniversary of President Trump's decision to pull out of the 2015 nuclear deal and to reimpose sanctions that had crippled Iran's economy. The United States has already blacklisted dozens of entities and people for affiliations with the IRGC, but the organization as a whole is not. Meanwhile, in response, Iran may put the U.S. military on its terror list if Washington goes through with the designation of the Iranian Elite Revolutionary Guard. The head of Parliament's National Security Committee stated on Twitter that if the Revolutionary Guards are placed on America's list of terrorist groups, we will put that country's military on the terror blacklist next to Islamic State. Such threats are particularly ominous for U.S. forces in places such as Iraq. Former Undersecretary of State and lead Iran negotiator Wendy Sherman said she worried about implications for U.S. forces. One might even suggest, since it's hard to see why this is in our interest, if the president isn't looking for a basis for conflict. The IRGC is already fully sanctioned, and this escalation absolutely endangers our troops in the region. This is certainly not a very good situation, and it definitely seems as if tensions are escalating all across the globe. More evidence of the times that we are living in. And I will definitely continue to keep you updated, as always. But I would love to hear from all of you, so please do leave your comments in the comment.
Hey man, this is the news that we're supposed to be watching. This is the news that keeps you up on information, what's going on around the world. Because as the scriptures say, the World War III is coming, man. And we can see it every day in the news. Okay, and it's just one news outlet, man. Okay, that be giving you the truth. Not CNN, not your local news. This ain't Fox News. This is what's really going on around the world. And this is what we're supposed to be watching for. Okay? I'm going to get a couple precepts. I got others too, but that's going to be a part. It's going to be another lesson. So this is Isaiah going in on about, actually, let me pull it up. Let me pull it up on the blue letter so it can be seen. Let me pull this up on the blue letter. So this is Isaiah 49 in verse 12. It's Isaiah 49:12. It say, behold, these shall come from far, and lo, these from the north and from the west, and these from the land of Sinim. It's saying these from the land of Sinim. Now let's look up that word Sinim. When you go to the word Sinim, it say H5515. Sinim, it say thorns. A people living at the extremity of the known world may be identified with the inhabitants of southern China. Okay? And right now, man, you got North Korea, you got Russia and China over there in Venezuela, man. Okay, China, and you heard her, man. China and Russia, man, they about to team up and come against North America, man. Thus saith the scriptures, okay? Reading it again. Isaiah 49:12. But these shall come from far, and lo, these from the north and from the west, and these from the land of Sinim. Now this is Jeremiah 50:9. For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations, with an S, from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as a mighty expert man, none shall return in vain. Okay? Put yourselves, verse 14, this is Jeremiah 15:14. Put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she hath sinned against the Lord. So these countries, man, all these countries is finna come up against North America and destroy North America, man. This Jeremiah 50:29. Call together the archers against Babylon. All ye that bend the bow, come against it round about. Let none therefore escape. Recompense her according to her works, according to all that she hath done. Do unto her, for she hath been proud against the Lord Yahweh, against the Holy One of Israel. Therefore shall her young man fall in the streets, and all her men of war shall be cut off in that day, saith the Lord Yahweh. These things are taking flight right now, man. Okay? All these nations. And the reason I brought that out, because it tell you that China's going to be right in the mix with Russia, North Korea, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Syria. All these countries finna destroy North America, man. Finna wipe North America off the planet, man. With what? 200 million missiles, man. Thus saith Revelation chapter 9, verse 16. It's the Lord's witness edifying. Got to give our praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone who rule well, who teach well. And a sincere salutation to all the ark, pushing the truth like the four winds of the earth, waking up the hopeful elect. Matter of fact, one more precept. Isaiah 13. Isaiah chapter 13, I'm going to read verse 5. And it read, they shall come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Lord Yahweh, and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land. Lord, witness of edifying. Shalom.